We here and want to welcome everybody in. Turn this up just a little bit for you. You hear that new intro. And we here. It's Monday, December the 5th. We gonna tap that out for you and bring this in and bring you in. And listen, here we are. Your boy, SportsRap D, in the building. Let me turn this mic down a little bit. So I'm here, and listen, we got some stuff to get to. Good morning, everybody. You know where we are, and welcome once again, as always, to another installment of the SportsRap podcast right here on Heat 100 Radio. Heat100radio.com is where you can get us. You can also get us on the TuneIn app. Just search Heat 100 Radio. You can also stay right here. Facebook, SportsRap Podcast, is the group page. This is where I go live each and every Monday. And listen, like I said, you know what we do on Mondays. You know how it goes down. And we got some new additions, some new stuff that we're going to be adding into. Some stuff I had started before, and I kind of got away from with doing all the prep. So now I've worked some things out. I worked out some kinks, and I got some things. So if you haven't seen the label on this video, you can call in and get in on this conversation later today, or if you have some Eagle stuff you want to talk to me about. But you can still always leave your comments. Comments are always welcome, as always. But now I've brought back that feature. You know, like I said, there's some things that I started that I went away from that I wanted to get back to. So if you haven't seen it, the number in there is 215-287-1672. I'm gonna try and type it in there again for you. While we are in this dialogue, if you missed it, or if you need to ask me again, just ask me in the comments, and I'll put it back in for you. So you know what we do. It's Monday, December the 5th, people. 5 days into December already. This year is pretty much gone. See, 5 days, so what's that make it? 26 days left in the year 2022. But more importantly, 17 days until my birthday and 20 days to Christmas. So those are the two magic numbers, 17 and 20. Those are the two numbers for today. So we're going to talk to you a lot about some stuff. We are definitely going to get into this Deion Sanders thing, like I said. But as always, you know what we do. You know how we get down here. News and updates. Like I said, Deion Sanders has been named the new head coach of football at the University of Colorado. There are some Netherlands players that clapped back at Charles Barkley after defeating the U.S. men's national team in the World Cup. Tyson Fury over the weekend defeats, I forget his first name, I think his name is Bruce. Bruce Cesaro defeats him early to retain his WBC heavyweight title. The PGA believes that Saudi Arabia and not Norman is running the LIV day-to-day operations. Like I told y'all when I presented that story to y'all, it was a big thing to start. And I said it's going to continue. There's going to always be some stuff going on with the back and forth and everything with that. So, you know, as I get news on that, I'll bring it to you and update you on what's going on with that situation. Alabama has found itself out of the top four in college football. And I'll give you those teams. Those teams are set, and I'll give you those in just a bit. NFL teams are now looking into Jim Harbaugh as a coaching option. The Eagles possibly could have clinched the playoff berth yesterday. This is what had to happen. The Eagles had to win. That happened. We also had to have losses by the Commanders, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. None of that even happened. The Commanders tied, 49ers won, I believe the Seahawks won, and I'll give you all the NFL scores when we get to our scores in a second. Bad news for 49ers fans. Yesterday's game, fairly early in that game, because I saw the stats. When I looked at the stats to check in on everything, 49ers quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo has a broken foot. He is reported out for the remainder of the season. As of right now, Brock Purdy will be the starting quarterback going forward, unless they sign somebody else or something like that. But tough break for the 49ers. They just made that trade for Christian McCaffrey. And I'm sure a lot of people will say that Shanahan's the coach. He can do it, whatever. Right. He can say he can put the players in the best position, but he can't get out there and play for them. So with a lot of the things that are going to come Brock Purdy's way in these next coming games, I hope that they get prepared, and then with that talent that they have, which is some very good talent, very, very good talent, if you will, it's a matter now of how do you get the ball to those talented skill position players that you have. How do you incorporate this in? And how do you, for lack of a better phrase, dumb down this offense for Brock Purdy, who is now going to be the incumbent starter for the foreseeable future, like I said, unless the 49ers make an addition somewhere down the line moving into the playoffs, if they do. Trae Young missed the game due to a spat with his head coach. There was something going on where Nate McMillan didn't like or didn't agree with the rehab on Trae Young's shoulder, and they had a little spat. Trae Young didn't show up for the game. I think he was told if he couldn't play, don't come. Something like that, whatever. I'm not going to get into the real particulars of that, but that was just the story that he had a spat, and that was the reason why he missed one of his most recent games. Joel Embiid, kudos to him. He passes Julius Erving for fourth most 30-point games for the Sixers. So let's give Joel some applause for that. Give Joel some applause for that. E. White, thanks for tuning in, good brother. Appreciate the support. Joel Embiid is like a welcome talent, mostly, for the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of people still with all the good that he does as far as playing basketball. You still have those people who consider him somewhat clumsy. A lot of people have been opinionated and saying that Sixers won't win a championship with him and might be time to move on and yada, yada, yada. And it's back and forth. You know, it was a coach last week. Now it's Joel Embiid. Next week it'll be somebody else. So it's just the nature of the Philly fans. And I mean, I can attest to that because I've been here all my life, born and raised, grown up here, been a Philly fan, the 4-team fan for a long time. So I understand it, I get it. But like, you know, people have to understand that where the Sixers are, and I think it's beginning to come together, and I mean that by saying with the injuries that they've had to key players, like their top 3 players, Joel missing games, Maxey and Harden missing games, and the numbers of games that they have missed, where these bench players and these new guys have come in and had to play, and they made the best of it. You see what Shake can do when he's being put in a position where he can just go and play. You see the welcome addition of DeAnthony Melton. It's very difficult. Lowell Rich, thanks for tuning in as well. It's very difficult right now to pinpoint what's going on with the situation with Montrezl Harrell. But George Niang has been performing. Daniel House is beginning to pick up. So this is what you want from your bench and from these guys, and that they had to play now. When it comes down later into the season, these guys will have that experience. They'll have that knowledge. And they'll know when they get in, they can just go and play. It won't be as much pressure on them to perform later on in the season. And it'll also help where you can have minutes, certain stretches in games. Maybe not long stretches, but you can have stretches in games moving forward where you can play these guys with some of your starters and you can rest some of your starters. I forgot about Tobias Harris, who's been playing very well for the last few games or so. So the Sixers are back in action tonight against the Houston Rockets, expecting James Harden back. So that will be a boost to go along with Joel and Tobias Harris. And we'll talk a little bit about that maybe in a second. So before I get into your scores and things of that nature, the NCAA college football, the playoffs are set. Top 4 teams are done. They were selected yesterday, I believe. They're in place now. And lo and behold, great Alabama, Crimson Tide, are not in the top 4 this year. It's a pretty decent top 4. One of the teams that are in the top 4 this year is a team that I think we talked about last year around this time that we felt had a very, very good chance of getting in. I think myself and Baldy felt like they should have gotten in, but we know the politics and all the things in that nature with the conferences and the levels and all of that jazz. But here are your top 4 NCAA men's football teams in the college football playoff. I'm just going to go this as they're going. I'm going to give you their number, where they seated at, and who they're playing. So we got number 1, the returning champion. Number 1, Georgia will face off against number 4, Ohio State University in the Peach Bowl. And number 2, Michigan will face off number 3, TCU in the Fiesta Bowl. Both of those games will be on December 31st, with the national title game coming on January 9th. Folks, that is your news, your updates for December the 5th, 2022. Now we'll get into some scores. I'm going to give you some NBA scores from yesterday, some NHL scores from yesterday, and then we'll get into the football stuff. Because when we get into the football stuff, there's always a little bit of dialogue in between. Maybe we'll pick a game here and things of that nature, and then it's going to lead us right into what we talk about. You see it. Philadelphia Eagles 11-1. We're going to get into some Eagles talk. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts. We're going to talk about the big emotional game that was yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson. I got his stats and his return to the Cleveland Browns in the game against Houston Texans, the team that traded him, the team that traded him after so much turmoil around that situation. So here we go. NBA scores from Sunday. The Nuggets fall to the Pelicans 121-106. The Phoenix Suns get by the Spurs 133-95. Celtics get by the Nets 103-92. Bulls fall to the Kings 110-101. Cavaliers fall to the Knicks 92-81. The Lakers get by the Wizards 130-119. The Grizzlies 122, Pistons 112. And the Blazers get by the Pacers by 16, 116-100. In the NHL, folks, the Ducks fall to the Jets 5-2. In a shootout, the Wild get by the Stars 6-5. The Red Wings get by the Blue Jackets 4-2. The Sharks fall to the Sabres 6-3. And the Islanders blank the Blackhawks 3-0. Moving on to Week 13 in the NFL. Folks, can you believe it? We are into Week 13. In the NFL, Week 13. It's 4 weeks left. Getting in crunch time, folks. We are getting down, coming into the home stretch. And we'll see how things, we saw yesterday, how some things have changed for some teams for the better. Some not so much for the better. So we'll see what happens down the stretch. Going back, Thursday, December 1st, kicking off Week 13. Buffalo and New England on Thursday Night Football. Buffalo takes that game 24-10. Moving into yesterday's games, folks, there were some okay games yesterday. My guy, Chucky A, what's good brother? Let's see here. Moving into yesterday's games, Sunday's games. Starting out, Pittsburgh and Atlanta. Atlanta falls at home 19-16. Green Bay gets up on Chicago 28-19. Jacksonville gets walloped by Detroit 40-14. The Jets get slowed down by Minnesota 27-22. In a sleeper, really strange game, division game as well, no less. Washington Commanders, New York Giants play to a tie 20-20 in overtime. Tennessee comes into Philly, gets beat up on by the Eagles 35-10. Denver and a I don't know what to call it, but here's the score. Baltimore takes this game 10-9. You call it what you want to call it. Cleveland gets by Houston 27-14 in the return of Deshaun Watson. Seattle gets a win over the LA Rams 27-23. San Francisco with the backup quarterback, actually, 33-17 over Miami. Kansas City falls to Cincinnati, 27-24. The Raiders from Las Vegas, 27-20 over the Chargers. The Dallas Cowboys embarrass the Indianapolis Colts 54-19. Coming up tonight, closing out Week 5 in the NFL. Monday Night Football, New Orleans at Tampa Bay. So, yeah, Chuck, definitely terrible. So let's talk while we're here and we are just kicking in. Let's talk some football, folks. Before we get into the Eagles talk and we talk about how that game went, because most of us here saw that game. So let's go back and let's talk about. I want to talk about this Washington Commanders New York Giants game. This game was billed going into this game. It was billed to be a fairly decent game. You've got two teams that could arguably both end up in the playoffs. I mean, ironically, the NFC East, the whole entire division, could end up in the playoffs. But talk about that later as we get a little bit more closer to the playoffs. But nonetheless, two teams that conceivably could end up somehow, some way in the playoffs. Okay, this is the first time they play each other division game, and they'll play each other not this coming week 14, but I think in week 15. They'll be playing each other again in week 15. I'm sure. I don't have week 15 scheduled. But yeah, they got the Giants come. The Giants are at home against the Eagles next week. So the week after that, week 15, the Giants and the Commanders play again. But this game is played to a tie. The Commanders and the Giants have been on the opposite ends of the spectrum right now, if you will. At the beginning of the season, the Giants were on a roll. They were doing their thing. Here lately, we say within the past couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, they've been somewhat stabilized and somewhat on a decline. The Washington Commanders, on the other hand, were just the opposite. They had beginning to make an upsurge, going back to the Monday night game against the Eagles, which they gave the Eagles their only loss of the season so far. But when you look at this game, like I said, it was billed to be a somewhat good game. Like we said, it's a division game. Could mean a lot for both of those teams as far as positioning. Not so much as in the division, but as in the playoffs where they would be in the wild card. And they ended up playing to a tie. The Eagles game was on, and I think I switched over to that, or I switched to that anyway just to see. Yeah, they switched it over to it. And you've been watching this game. And watching both of those teams as they had possessions in the overtime didn't really show me the urgency like they wanted that game. It was more so let's get ourselves into the position to have an opportunity and kind of like see what happens. That's kind of how I felt watching the game. And again, like I always tell you folks every Monday when I'm here, it's my thoughts only. Nobody's prompting me. I'm not stepping away from anything, but that's how I felt when I was watching what I was watching. Didn't see any urgency where teams were calling plays to get into that position, which they did, and I saw that, so I can't take that back. They did show plays to get in that position, but those plays were like, in my opinion, basic plays to get into the position to figure, all right, we know his range, let's get as close as possible to his range, if not in his range, or well within his range, and then let's give it a shot. And then the opposite way, that was like, as I was on both sides. I more so paid attention to that Giant side last possession because they're the higher up. They're a little bit close to the Eagles, but they can't catch the Eagles anyway. Chuck says, neither team played to win. They both were playing not to lose. Yeah, absolutely. Just like I was getting ready to get into, Chuck, the Giants series late, or that last series in that game, like, you got to stretch those plays a little bit. And I understand the time frame and the timeout situation and things of that nature, but you made a couple good plays on that drive. Plays that were, like, expected. If you listen to the commentators yesterday, like, those were the plays that were expected. But then you kind of shortened them out a little bit, where you were kind of saying, I don't want to risk too much. I know what my kicker's range is. Let's try to get as close as possible to that range, maybe on the edge, and see what happens. And then the result was we saw what happened. The field goal was short. So we saw what happened. And again, like Chuck said, the teams were not playing to win the game. They were playing not to lose. And just my opinion, in that type of situation, in that type of game, where you are in your conference, it's a division game. Where you are in the division game, where you are in your conference, possibly or not possibly making a push to get into the playoffs. Like this tie could have huge ramifications on both of these teams. Although they split with the Eagles, yes. So their run with the Eagles is over. The Eagles don't have to worry about them anymore. It's the split, but the Eagles are still better at 11-1, and Washington can't catch them. The situation is more so for Washington and the Giants, who are the bottom two teams on the division. And again, the whole division is good this year for some strange reason. The Cowboys, I think, are now 9-3, and with that shellacking of Indianapolis last night, makes no sense to me. But my man Cyrano Ginyard, thanks for tuning in, good brother. So it's going to be tough. Like I really think that they kind of, both teams kind of laid an egg at the same time in this game. And like I said, I just feel like that this tie is going to mean so much to both of these teams coming down the stretch. Obviously, we see now the Eagles are 11-1. That's 12 games with, you see, 5 games left. The Eagles are going to be on that step there, I guess, for the next several weeks, where it started this week, where if they win and certain teams do whatever, lose, tie, whatever, they'll clinch. So it's like every week the Eagles have the possibility to clinch a playoff spot. Again, it didn't work out completely for them yesterday, but I can say that they did handle their part and they did get the win as they should have gotten the win. They did what they were supposed to do. And if you go back into that game and you listen to the commentary, Mark Brown, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to get to that in 1 second, Chuck. Mark Brown, thanks for tuning in. So they did what they were supposed to. Like I keep saying, they're showing you and doing things that good teams do, that they find ways to win. And like Greg Olson was saying yesterday, Eagles are becoming so much more difficult because you cannot now pinpoint on one thing that they do well. A lot of times you look at teams, a perfect example, their opponent yesterday, where the Eagles consistently put them in 3rd and longs, which, like he kept saying, that team is not built for 3rd and longs. Okay, 1, they got rid of A.J. Brown. 2, they rely heavily on Derrick Henry. So it's not, and they rely on him in early downs, 1st and 2nd down, to put themselves in position to be in those 3rd and shorts where they can excel. They're not built for the 3rd and long, which became a problem for them yesterday. And the Eagles did what they were supposed to do there. They maintained. They worked on some things. They experimented with 2 defensive tackles in the middle of that line, and they considerably handled the running game of Derrick Henry and the Titans yesterday. Let's see. My guy here, Chuck, Denver Broncos fan, very, very good friend. What are we going to say, Chuck? 40 plus years of friendship, if you will, if not more. What's going on in Denver? Chuck, I visited this story a few weeks back, but to come back and revisit, I've been asking myself that just about all season, Chuck. Not like I said, I know you're a Broncos fan and I'm not the Broncos fan, but I do what I do. But I'm a football fan. I'm a sports fan. We all are. This is how I came to this. This is what we always do when we around each other, when we together. We talk hip hop and we talk sports. This is why it's called SportsRap. Everybody knows the story behind it, whatever. But here's the thing. I first thought that it was Russell Westbrook. I keep saying Westbrook when I get these Russells because both of them are kind of like weird right now, so it's kind of easy to mix them up. But Russell Wilson, in the beginning, I felt like something was wrong. initially, I'm going to give you my steps, Chuck. Initially, I thought there was something wrong with Russell Wilson physically. I let it go for a second. I just kept watching. And then at some point, maybe a couple weeks ago, they came out with a report about an injury. And it wasn't minor. Then it got upgraded to a little bit more of an injury. Not a real serious injury, but it was an injury. First it was like he was hurt. And then he was injured. You know the difference. If you're hurt, you can still play. If you're injured, you can't. Y'all remember that movie, The Program. It's all in there. Go back and watch it anyway. But that's what I thought at first. Then, as I kept watching, I began to also think, second reason I began to think, maybe the system with that coaching staff is not conducive for Russell Wilson. But then I put my coaching hat on, and I remembered the things that I always say when I'm asked certain questions and when I'm asked different things, and I go from a coaching aspect. I always say that I feel like there comes times when coaches have to adjust their system, playbook, schemes, whatever word you want to use. I feel like it comes a point sometimes where they have to adjust that to the talent level of their players. That's just how I feel. Felt that would come. I don't remember who it was that said it yesterday, but somebody on one of the pregame shows yesterday said a lot of people fooled themselves when things got bad in Seattle, and they thought that they would get Russell Wilson in. They thought they would get the same Russell Wilson from Seattle and Denver. Let's see. Chuck says, I think Russell Wilson should renegotiate that contract so we can get other players because we gave up too many high picks to get him. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other big part of it. Chuck, you're right. Denver gave up a lot. And right now, it's not working out. It's kind of like you can look at this situation and you can kind of sort of put it on the table with the 49ers situation, which is stuff that I said to Frank earlier when the season was just getting started, like week 2, week 3. And just to step away for a second, Chuck, from Denver. And what are some of the things I said to him was in that situation when Trey Lance got hurt. And I said, yeah, you got Jimmy G, okay, but who's your backup? At that point, he didn't know. No issues, whatever. But then I said, y'all have a problem that at some point you're going to have to address. And I said to him, God forbid anything goes wrong or whatever. I said, but you lost Trey Lance for the year. So I said, so now his learning curve is delayed. His physical ability could be hindered just a little bit because of the type of injury he has and the type of quarterback player that he is. And it's where the 49ers wanted to go. They wanted to go to the mobile quarterback. But now they got to rethink that because they don't know how strong he's going to come back and his ability to be that mobile quarterback. Not at the level when he was before the injury. I don't think he'll get back to that right away if he ever does get back to where he was before the injury, which usually doesn't happen. Chuck says, Jimmy G is a carbon copy of Tony Romo. Nate Phillips Williams, thanks for tuning in. So in that situation, now you got that injury, you got Brock Purdy, and you got Christian McCaffrey, you got Deebo Samuel back. You did all that. And again, you're in the same situation when I started putting them on the table with the Broncos where things are not going well right now. And it's going to be tough for you to recoup because of the moves that you made where you gave up so much. To Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey gave up a lot. Like Chuck just said, Russell Wilson going to Denver. Denver gave up a lot. Just to piggyback what Chuck said about, yeah, right. Shaw Sister Auntie, thanks for tuning in. Nate, you are crazy. Nate just said, insert Baker Mayfield in San Francisco. I don't see that happening, Nate, because like I just mentioned, and like it was presented with the whole situation in the beginning, in the offseason, and then going into the beginning of the season with the 49ers, where they wanted to move into that realm with the mobile quarterback. Then he got hurt. It didn't happen. They brought Jimmy G back. So I still think they want to go into that mold of having a mobile quarterback. Jimmy Baker Mayfield just doesn't do that. Yeah, it could. They could be cutting him. I haven't seen that as of yet, but I'm sure I'll get an alert either when I take a break or sometime after the show. Shortly after the show, I'll see it. I mean, in my opinion, I didn't feel like Baker Mayfield was showing what a number one pick should show. You can compare some guys to him. On another note, Geno Smith is playing the second best ball in the NFC after. Yeah, Chuck. I mean, Geno Smith was a solid quarterback in my opinion in the NFL, and he's just making the best of his opportunity. And again, some of the things I just recently said, I think that system that he's been in, he's comfortable in it. So there may have been a little bit of adjusting because he's not Russell Wilson. He's not as mobile as Russell Wilson is. So they may have had to tweak it a little bit, but he's been in that system and he's excelling in that system because he's comfortable and he knows it. So yes, kudos to Geno Smith for succeeding and playing as well as he's been playing. But getting back to Baker Mayfield, like I said, I never really thought he was a number one pick. I always felt like he was overrated. He had that one really good year in Cleveland when they made the playoffs. He hasn't had a good season in Carolina. He's been in and out of the lineup. Like Nate just mentioned, they're probably going to cut him today. If that happens, I'll definitely let you all know via social media or however I have to do it. But it's not a surprise to me. I don't think San Francisco, the offense to run, the style, the scheme that they have with the talent that they have at the skill positions, I don't think that fits a Baker Mayfield. I don't think he fits in a Mike Shanahan style or Kyle Shanahan style of offense. And if I think as a coach, and you could arguably say put Mayfield in that and have Kyle adjust to like he has done with Jimmy G. He's made it so Jimmy G doesn't have to go and win a game when he was playing. If you do that with Baker Mayfield in San Francisco with the talent that they have now, I think you lose some of that talent. You take away from some of that talent that you have because of Baker Mayfield. Chuck says he's a Sooners fan and he thinks Baker Mayfield is awful. Yeah, again, like I said, I've always thought he was overrated. Okay, he says ESPN just reported about 10 minutes ago. That's fine. Like I said, I'm on air, so I didn't get that yet. Like I said, when I get it, I'll announce it. When it's confirmed for me, I'll announce it when I do. But, it's the thing. Like that young kid that they got down there that won that game for them, they brought them back in that game, and then they had that costly penalty from a veteran receiver. And that game ended up going to overtime, and they ended up losing. I thought he should have been starting sooner than what he was. He gives you what you want in today's quarterback. Today's football, today's NFL has decidedly, and we see it a lot, moved away from the older quarterbacks where these guys were in the pocket, the offensive line held up, and they like the Tom Brady types of quarterbacks. Those guys are pretty much a far-gone conclusion in today's NFL. And I'm not saying everybody has to be a Lamar Jackson, a Jalen Hurts, stuff like that. But guys that can move around. You got Aaron Rodgers, who can move around in the pocket. You got Russell Wilson, when he's playing like Russell Wilson, can move around and extend plays. Josh Allen can extend plays. You got other quarterbacks that can do things, not necessarily being the running quarterback, but they can move around. They're mobile enough to move around to extend plays or use their feet and run if they have to. That's where today's NFL quarterbacks are. So Baker Mayfield in my opinion, is not that. Like I said, I felt like he is overrated, and we see he's possibly going to be getting cut, or he's already going to be getting reports out that he'll be getting cut, and we'll see what happens for the rest of his career. I mean, he may get picked up somewhere, he may not, but it is what it is. I mean, I always talk about too, also rather, that transition. If stuff doesn't transition in, you go from different levels. You go from, junior high school, middle school, PB League, then you get high school, and you get college, and then you get to the pros if you make it that far. But there, you got to adjust. You got to improve. You got to work on your craft, and you got to improve and get to that next level every step of the way. A lot of times you have guys that get to the college level and excel, and then they get to the pro level, and that excel doesn't transition and doesn't transfer in with them. So they don't have the careers that they feel like they should have, because that talent level begins to go dormant a little bit, and now you're at guys that are at the same level. It's more guys that are at the same level that you are. So now you got to compete. So you got to work on your craft, and you got to stay on it. You got to bring that intensity and everything in. And a lot of times it doesn't come. Sometimes it comes late when they realize it, but sometimes also it does not come at all. Getting into your Eagles-Titans game yesterday, we know the score of that game, 35-10, Philadelphia Eagles at home at the Link. Take that game. Give you some stats. Got the team stats overall, but I'm going to give you some stats for Jalen Hurts, because we got a lot to talk about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts yesterday, 29-39, 380 yards passing, 9.7 yard average, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked twice for a total of 5 yards. Pretty good numbers. Really good numbers there. He is playing out of his mind. we gonna get to some Celtics, Chuck. No worries at all. Yeah, the Eagles did. They very much so shut King Henry down yesterday. At times when they showed him sitting on a bench, the look on his face was a look of surprise, almost a look of confusion as to like, wow, this is not what I expected. Also yesterday, a kind of grudge game for Eagles receiver A.J. Brown. And get into the stats for him for yesterday. Receiving stats for the Eagles. A.J. Brown targeted 10 times. He had 8 receptions, 119 yards for a 14.9 yard average. 2 TDs, and his longest was a 40-yard touchdown, which he was wide open on. Devontae Smith, also another 100-yard game. 8 targets, 5 receptions for 102 yards, 20.4 yards a carry, also 1 touchdown. His long was 34. Jake Stoll incorporated into the offense yesterday. 3 targets, 3 receptions for 41 yards. Quez Watkins, pretty decent game. 6 targets, 5 receptions for 37 yards. Chuck EJ, yes, he was playing bully ball the entire game. So the team stats for yesterday's game: first downs total 10 for the Titans, 26 for the Eagles. Passing first downs 5 for the Titans, 16 for the Hood. You came in late. I talked about that, but I'll give you what I said about that in just a second. Rushing first downs 4 for the Titans, 7 for the Eagles. Penalties, which really, you look at it and you figure it should have hurt the Eagles. The Eagles were totally penalized. 12 penalties for 80 yards, 7 penalties for 82 yards for the visiting Titan. Derrick Henry was held to 11 rushing attempts for 30 yards on a 2.7 yard average. No touchdown. His longest run of the night, I think, was 17 yards. In the return, Deshaun Watson, 12 of 22 for 131 yards, 6-yard average, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 sack for 1 yard, and a 27-14 win over the Texans in Houston. He started off a little sluggish, but then he picked it up and got into a little rhythm, and hence he's 12 of 22 for 131 yards. All right. Nate, getting back to you, we're going to bring it back just a second. Washington and New York ended in a tie, says my opinion. My opinion is I was somewhat disappointed with that game. You look at the NFC East, you look at the division. Like I said, arguably the entire division could end up in the playoffs. But when you look at that game, the thing you want to look at when you look at that game, Washington and New York, you look at that game, you felt like, again, like I said, it was built up to be everything that you could expect this late in the season from a division game, and it wasn't, unfortunately. Again, in that overtime, neither one of those teams had any urgency, in my opinion. Like Chuck commented, he said neither one of those teams played to win. They both were playing to not lose. So, yeah, I think that tie is going to come back and bite both of them in the you-know-what. I think it's going to mean a lot more than you think about right now when it really comes down to it. And I say that so because it's a division game and their records are so close. But each team has a chance to redeem themselves because they play each other again in a couple weeks. I think it's like week 15 or week 16. They play each other again. So we'll see what happens when they play each other once again. But getting to some more Eagles talk, Jalen Hurts, my guy, is doing the thing. Right now, I saw a report this morning that he has surpassed. He's better. His performance as of now is better than Carson Wentz's was. And one of the things I can agree with that statement because a lot of things I said about Carson Wentz when we went through the trade thing with him and all of his nonsense. What I said was in those last couple seasons here, he began to regress. He was making mistakes and doing things that I felt like a fourth, fifth-year quarterback should not be making. You should be able to overcome these things that you encountered as a rookie. When you look at Jalen Hurts now, he was dedicated to put the work in, and you see the improvements all the way across the board in his game from last season into this season. It shows. And look at where the Eagles are. You look at it, and you look at Jalen Hurts, and you see things that you want from your franchise quarterback. A lot of things that he does are things that I wish at the time that Carson Wentz would have done. Where I felt like a lot of times Carson Wentz took a lot of punishment because he didn't want to throw the ball away. He threw a lot of interceptions because he tried to force too many balls into too many tight spaces. But you see with Jalen Hurts, he attempts certain throws, but the throws that he's attempting are more so in the situation where if my receiver doesn't catch it, nobody catches it. He's stretching plays, but when the play does not look like it's there, he's not forcing the issue. He's throwing the ball away. Things that you learn as a quarterback, things that help you progress. Nate says, if everything stays the same, do you think it will be an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl? Listen, a lot of people are still on that Chiefs back. And I'm happy Andy Reid got a Super Bowl, and I know who the Chiefs are. But they have changed since they lost that speed in Tyreek Hill. They have changed. They're still right there, but they lost yesterday. A lot of people going into yesterday's game were talking Miami, possibly. Well, they pretty much stayed the same because both of those teams lost. So the Chiefs and, Nate, we saw what happened last year. You cannot count the Buffalo Bills out just yet. So I don't know. As far as the Eagles in their situation, they already beat Minnesota. Other teams in the NFC, I don't see it. I mean, they're going to have to come to South Philly anyway. But I don't see. I mean, if everything goes well, the Eagles have put themselves in a very, very, very great position. Going to take my first break, folks. When I come back, I am going to talk a little basketball. So we got some basketball. We're going to talk a little bit of that because Chuck wanted me to talk some Celtics. I don't know why he asked me that, and I'm a Sixers fan. But do what I do. Come back. We're going to talk some basketball. And then we're going to get into that Deion Sanders situation where there's a lot of mixed opinions about that. So while I'm on break, if you go to the page, I posted something from Emmanuel Acho. Go back and check that out, and I'm going to bring that up later on. Folks, you are tuned into SportsRap right here on Heat 100 Radio. It's your boy, SportsRap D. I'll be right back with you on the other side in just a couple seconds. Okay. Welcome back to this installment, this episode of the Sports Rap Podcast right here on Heat 100 Radio, heat100radio.com. Facebook Sports Rap Podcast LLC is the group page where you can get me live. Like I always say, later on, the video will go up. Robert Reeves, Coach, thanks for tuning in. Hope everybody that was here earlier comes back. Nate, Rich, Lowell, Rich, Chuck, Mark Brown, everybody else that was tuned in. Please come on back. Please come on back. So like I'm saying, everybody, I love support. Thank you for the support. As always, this just gives me the drive to keep doing what I do, and I appreciate all the compliments, all the support. Like I said, like I consistently say. So real quick, we talked about the Eagles and we talked about how the division is, and Nate brought up the question again about that, whatever you want to call it, other game, division game, Giants, Commanders, and they ended up in the tie. So here are the standings, current standings right now. For Lowell Rich, thanks for coming back. Here are the current standings for the NFC East right now. The Eagles are at 11-1. The Cowboys are at 9-3. Giants 7-4-1. Commanders 7-5-1. Although the Cowboys are at 9-3, they already have a loss to the Eagles. So I don't think that they will be able to catch the Eagles, even though they do have another game coming up against the Eagles, second game of the division series on Christmas Eve. But I don't think by that time, I don't think it will matter much for the Eagles because they have the Giants next week. And I have to look at that schedule. I don't have the schedule right in front of me. Thank you, Lowell. I appreciate that. I know they got the Giants next week. The Eagles do. I don't know who they have after that. But the schedule for the Eagles, I think, is a little formidable for them going down the stretch. But considering the way they've been playing, I still would think it would be formidable for them anyway. So to oblige my guy, before I get into my Deion Sanders talk, because we definitely got to talk about Deion Sanders. Let's see. Ivan Robinson, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Absolutely, Mighty. No problem, man. You know how we do. Family. So, family take care of family, Now that you brought that up, I forgot to mention that earlier. As you know, you saw the pictures and you saw the photos. Saw the pictures, photos, same thing. Saw the pictures, you saw the videos of my Saturday night at the Grand Geisha Ballroom. My guy, Ivan Mighty Robinson, Kingdom Boxing. 2 fighters on that card. Justo Leak Holden, at justo.lique is his Instagram. You can follow him there. You can fight old Mighty Robinson, Mighty Robinson 1 on Instagram. Also follow Kingdom Boxing. The other fighter that was there was Jayon Showtime Tenon. You can follow him at the real Showtime _. 2 victories on that card. One, Jayon Tenon, miraculously, by the grace of God, had his pro debut. Something happened. There were some technical difficulties, and he ended up getting moved to the main event. He wins in a unanimous decision. And earlier that night, Jalik Holden stopped his opponent with the TKO in the second round. So shout outs to them. Just like I said, family, so mighty. No problem, no doubt. Family is what we do. We take care of each other. We look out for each other. Appreciate y'all having me there as well to cover the event. So again, like I was starting to get to my guy, Chuck. Here he is. He's back. Guess he heard me. He asked about the Boston Celtics. I gotta do this. Because as you all know, I am a Sixers fan and not a Celtics fan. But it's what we do. It's all love. Like I said in the earlier part of the show, I've known Chuck for 40 years, at least, of friendship. So we talk sports all the time. Different teams that we are fans of, so we talk and we go at each other all the time, back and forth, back and forth. But it's all love because we also congratulate each other when things go well for our teams, although in between all of our bickering and banter. But it's like I said, it's all love, it's family, we bros, that's what we do. But you wanted me to talk about the Boston Celtics, who are basketball-wise folks, so let me just preempt this. This is basketball talk. These opinions about these Celtics are not my sole opinions. Well, they are my sole opinions, but I'm just speaking basketball-wise. In no way, shape, or form am I converting over to the green and white. I am red, white, and blue till I am blue, if you know what I mean. I'm red, white, and blue. Sixers fan, Eagles fan. You know what it is. But anyway, Celtics are 19-5. Best record in the NBA, as I just looked. Also tops in the conference, and we are in the same conference as them. We are second place right now in the conference at 12-11. Same record as the Raptors, but we are above them because we beat them. The Brooklyn Nets 13-12, and then rounding out the 15, the bottom of the barrel, New York Knicks at 11-15. So you look at, and I said 13-12 for the Nets and 12-11 for the Sixers. And some people may say, well, why are the Sixers in second place? Well, because we beat the Nets, one. And the Nets are just not really, right now, they're not better than the Sixers. And although the Sixers have been struggling, I still don't think that the Nets are better. Just like I wasn't scared of the Nets last year. James Murphy, thanks for tuning in, good brother. I wasn't scared of the Nets last year. And we saw how that played out and everything about the trade and all that. We're still in a better position than the Nets are. When I just went off and looked while we were on break, if the playoffs were to start today, the Sixers would be the number 5 seed, the Nets would be the number 8, which means that the Nets will be again in the play-in tournament. But again, like they said, the Sixers lost the trade. But giving kudos to the Boston Celtics, who are continuing. Zet, my guy, thanks for tuning in, good brother. The Celtics are doing their thing right now. They're just continuing where they were last year. I thought it would be somewhat of a drop-off with the coaching change, but it seems like they came to a decision and they kept a lot of things, a lot of systems that was successful for them last year, and they're running that through. But we'll see what happens later on, Chuck. We got a long season left to go. But I got you out the way anyway. Yeah, but kudos to y'all, man. Y'all playing good ball right now. It's one of those things, like I said, I can say it because I'm a true fan and I'm true to my word. So, again, they are doing their thing right now. But, again, in all of our love and all of our banter, you know what, with the Celtics, all right? I'm a Sixers fan, bro. But I love you, Chuck, so I had to get that in for you. Moving along, the main topic or the biggest topic of the day. If you saw my flyer when I posted, I had a picture of this gentleman in that flyer along with my photo. I am referring to now the Deion Sanders situation. Before I get into that, yes, it has been confirmed, and I just recently posted it. The Carolina Panthers are going to waive, or if they not have already done it, will be waiving Baker Mayfield as a quarterback. So we'll see what happens with them. So obviously that means to me that they could be using that word and they could be tanking and looking to move up. And when you say that tanking, like you look at the Sixers, the Eagles are right now, if you looked at it, I saw it yesterday, they got like the 6th pick. They play the Saints somewhere down the line, and we were talking yesterday, and it's like when they got to that Saints game, it might not mean much. You might want to rest starters, but then again, they thought about it and was like, wait, we could be the best team in the NFL. We can win this game against the Saints and end up getting a top 4 pick. Sounds like something you can work on. Sounds like something you can get into. So we'll see what happens with that when we get to that game. But again, the main dialogue for the day is the Deion Sanders situation, the Deion Sanders dialogue, which is going to be hot all day, probably for the next couple days, if you will. And I'm here today, so I had to bring it. The news broke yesterday. There were reports and questions and comments and talk about it, but the report broke yesterday. He was actually, I believe, announced yesterday as the new head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, the University of Colorado. Troy Sanders, thanks for tuning in. So some people, like I mentioned, I won't say some people, but there's been mixed views about this situation with Deion Sanders moving from Jackson State and going to Colorado. One of the things that Deion said in one of his quotes, and I wrote it down and I can't seem to find it right now. But one of the things he said was, he said, as far as coaching, you either get elevated or you get terminated. So, end quote. So, I got what he meant by that. Some people are in this thing where they feel like, and they have been putting it out there, allegedly, there's been whispers that Deion was a sellout because he's leaving Jackson State. It is very, very easy for a lot of people to go that route because, again, like I said, easy because that's the easiest route. It's the easiest route to go. Again, when I'm done this show today, this live show, you can go back to my page and I posted a video from, I think it's Emmanuel Acho. I'm pretty sure it's Emmanuel Acho. I posted it earlier this morning because I knew I was going to talk about this today. I posted that. And when you look at that video, I posted, he makes a lot of valid points. So I'll be expecting some comments and some stuff from that video later on today as the day progresses. But getting to that thing, like I said, saying that he's a sellout is the easiest, in my opinion, is the easiest route to go. And when I say that, people will say that because, Deion Sanders went to Jackson State. So they're reveling in the success that he had at Jackson State. The SWAC conference titles, the undefeated season, the recruiting, the TV, the national notoriety that he brought into that institution. So now people are saying, he brought that, now he's walking away. And these are some of the lines and some of the angles that Emmanuel Acho put in his video as well. And I knew some of this stuff, and it was like just so fitting that he came out with that video. And I didn't do a video because, like I said, I knew I was coming here this morning to talk to you all live. When you look at this situation, you take into consideration what Deion did for Jackson State. Let's go the whole broad spectrum. Where was Jackson State before Prime got there? Exactly. What did he do while he was there? Definitely deserves applause. Definitely deserves a lot of recognition. So, he does things for Jackson State that have not been done for Jackson State before. Jackson State is like there now. It's HBCU, yes. He opened the doors for some top flight recruits to begin to look at HBCUs, which he did in different sports other than football as well. So now this man gets the opportunity to move on into a Power 5 conference as a football coach. Now let's break it all down, folks. As an African-American football coach, Hall of Fame football player, Hall of Fame NFL Hall of Famer, with the status that he has as a person and just in general, what he showed you as a coach, how he can bring and get the respect of his team. He's bringing some players with him. Yes, so some players are going to go with him. But now you look at this opportunity. Now there are more doors that can be opened for African Americans, players, coaches, whatever. Now you got Deion at a Power 5 conference school as an African American and the success that he's had. Can you imagine the turnaround he can get at Colorado? And people will argue, so now that he got some of these kids to go to these HBCUs, now they're going to retract and go now to these bigger schools. Well, it's only one right now. That's Colorado. Because you look at all the other schools, the coaches are not that. There are some very good coaches in the NCAA. I argue not with that. Very good coaches. But when people begin that argument of now these kids are going to leave HBCUs and go to these major colleges, well, it's only one. It's not going to be enough scholarships for everybody to go to the one. But what Deion can do is use everything that he did at Jackson State, and he can use that to his/our advantage. Like he said, in coaching, you either get elevated or you get terminated. Yeah, you either get elevated or you get terminated. He told his team, he said, there's nowhere for me to die. There's no coaches don't go somewhere and die. They either leave, walk off on their own, or they get pushed out the door. He made this choice. And he said it's not about the bag. It's about him seeing what he did at Jackson State for some young African-American athletes and some other athletes, looking at the bigger picture and seeing the door that he could open in the Power 5 conference that could expand to other power conferences. Again, that can open a lot of doors. He's at the door, people. He's at the door. So in my opinion, I'm not mad that he left. I'm actually a little excited that he's in that position for a lot of the reasons that I just told you. But I get the situation that everyone is talking about. He's a sellout, allegedly. He left the HBCU. Whatever. It's a great thing, what he did with the HBCU. And I think it was my guy, I Heart Hoops, who posted something yesterday. Question was, it was like a question, it was a statement, it was a post, it was a question, basically, what was Jackson State before Deion got there? What is Jackson State now? Just because he leaves, he left a legacy there. It's not etched in stone that all of those coaches are going to go with him. He's got some players that are going to go. Yeah, his son is already going with him as a quarterback. Yeah. He's got some more stuff. And he told the kids in Colorado, they were already there. He said, yo, I got some baggage, and that's coming with me. So he told them that. He preempted them with that. But again, you look at the opportunity on both sides of the fence. You look at the opportunity for these athletes. Same reasons I said this when he went to Jackson State. Look at the opportunity. And his coaching staff, they had Hall of Famers on his coaching staff. But my thing, yeah, Chuck, you might be right with that. Chuck says everybody wanted him to be Eddie Robinson and stay for 50 years. Yeah. And again, the difference now, Chuck, opportunities weren't there then. So in essence, like Eddie Robinson kind of had to stay. Now you don't have to stay. You can take this opportunity and you can blueprint what you did at Jackson State and put that into play at Colorado. Again, it's going to open doors for the athletes, like I was beginning to say. Look who they're playing for. Playing for a Hall of Famer who had Hall of Famers on his coaching staff, who could arguably be on this next coaching staff with him. All these guys that are playing this college football now have aspirations of making it to the league. So now you're getting coached by some of the highest level players that played in the league that you have aspirations of getting to. Can't ask for much more than that. On the coaching side, the opportunities that can come from this as far as for African American coaches. And it doesn't necessarily have to say that you got to jump right in and being a head coach. You can work your way in. Deion is doing what we wanted someone to do for a long time. Now he's in. Like I said, he's at the table. He's been at the table. He's at the door now. And he can open that door. And I think he will open that door. I think it's a success thing for. And a lot of people, like I said, have to look at things in the long run, where his mind frame is. Look at the future down the line. So many people are stuck in the here and now and not seeing what can become of his move. Chuck says he's going to give a lot of black players a chance to get high D1 that otherwise wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. Absolutely, Chuck. Same thing like I said with the HBCUs. You got some of the talent that would have been going to D1 schools to come there. Now you're going to get some African-American athletes who might have just been touching the edge of getting that D1. Now they can go. Like I said, it starts at Colorado. Like I said, it's only one school now. But once people see what goes on and what happens, they're going to start to mimic it, as they always do. They're going to copy it. And it may not necessarily be immediately a head coach. People are going to figure out a way to start the process. So what they'll probably do is they'll see what Deion does, and then they'll start bringing some people in as assistant coaches. Hopefully to get some of that to rub off, and possibly eventually getting to open their doors for some African-American coaches to become head coaches at these power schools. Deion is in a great position, in my opinion. A great position to do some great things. Like I said, he was in a great position going to Jackson State. I think now he's in a greater position for African-Americans, athletes, coaches in that realm, in that NCAA realm. So again, for all the people that were thinking like, oh, he's a sellout, you got to get out of the here and now. And you got to look at the opportunities that can become from what he's doing now. It's a stretch. You could argue that as well. But again, it's a great position to be in. His head, his words are all in the right place. Like he said, it's not about the money. It's about making that progression. It's about getting to that table, then getting to the head of that table, and then, like I just mixed in, get into that door. And Deion is at that door. He's been at the table. Now he's at that door. That's where we need guys like him. We need them at that door, at that table. It's a blessing where people don't even see it right now. Again, people, you got to get out of the here and now, and you got to look forward to what's coming on down the line. What could be down the line. Right. He said Jackson State had 30 fans in the stand before Jackson State got there. They even got some primetime TV games because Deion was there. Colorado usually had a decent football team. You know, they've had a slack off in the last several years. But imagine, just with Deion's name alone, how many kids, how many athletes are going to think about going there now. And it's like the right time because they're getting ready to open the transfer portal. Now, do you think Deion's a sellout now? Transfer portal opens, people. He's going to another school, a power conference. He can recruit. He can bring those kids in the transfer portal. Money-wise, on the other hand, if people looking at it that way, look at what it will do for Colorado. Get them more TV time because people now are going to want to see what he's doing at Colorado. It's going to get them a little bit more notoriety because people are going to want to see what Deion is doing as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes now. So, folks, my opinion, no sellout. I wanted to bring this to you real quick, like I said, to get it out the air, get it out in the open. Again, you can go, you can post. You can post your comments on that video, Mario Achu. Once I wrap up here, you can post your comments on this video once you go back and watch it again. And if you have any questions, you can add them in there. As I get to them, I will try to get answered as many as I can if you leave me some questions. So that's where we are. Again, I don't agree with a lot of the people that are believing that Deion is a sellout. I think it's a great move. I think it's a smart move, and I'm just waiting to see the possibilities that become from him being the coach. Yeah, Chuck, you might have to go to Colorado and call them. But if I get a little connect, I may put a call in for you and talk to that. I had to call Gilly, tell him to get with Prime and tell him to get him some help out to the Broncos. So he might be able to do that since he's in Colorado. Absolutely right. Folks, coming up tonight in the NBA, Sixers are back in action against the Rockets in Houston with James Harden scheduled to make his return tonight. Also on the slate tonight, the Clippers are at the Hornets, the Bucks and the Magic. Celtics, Chuck, are in Toronto to play the Raptors, the Thunder and the Hawks, the Suns and the Mavs, the Pacers and the Warriors, the Heat, and the Grizzlies. In the NHL tonight, the Avalanche are in South Philly to face off against the Flyers. The Golden Knights and the Bruins, the Blues and the Rangers, Capitals, Oilers, Coyotes, Flames, Canadians, Canucks. Again tonight, closing out Week 13 in the NFL, Monday Night Football. The New Orleans Saints are in Florida to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Moving on, giving you my picks for Week 14. Coming up this Thursday, the Raiders and the Rams. I'm going to take the Raiders there because I really don't know what's going on with the Rams. The Jets at Buffalo. I'm going to take Buffalo at home. Cleveland and Cincinnati. Riding the wave. Even though they are riding the wave, I'm going to go with Cincy at home. Houston at Dallas. Dallas at home. Detroit, Minnesota. I'm picking the upset here because people will call this an upset. I'm going with Detroit at home over Minnesota. Jacksonville at Tennessee. Look for Tennessee to bounce back against Jacksonville. Philadelphia up the road, up 95 in Jersey, in New York. I like them on the road against the Giants. Baltimore at Pittsburgh. Don't know about the injury to Lamar. I'm going to take Pittsburgh at home. I'm going to take Miami and the Chargers. I like the Chargers in that game. Tampa Bay at San Fran. I like Tampa Bay there due to the quarterback situation. I don't know how it's going to be. Carolina with a change of quarterbacks there in Seattle. I like Seattle. I like Kansas City over Denver. And next Monday, I like Arizona at home over New England. Folks, it's been a great time talking to you all as always. Again, I appreciate your support. You know where to find me each and every Monday right here. Heat100radio.com, Heat100 Radio app. Tune in. You can get the Tune in app and get Heat 100 Radio there as well. Facebook, SportsRap Podcast LLC is the group page. You can get me on Instagram and Twitter at SportsRap_D on both of those. Also, SportsRapD on TikTok. I've been working on some TikTok, so check me out there too. Also, you can get the website, SportsRapRadio.com. You can get the audio on Spreaker, iHeart, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and most of your podcast outlets. And please, folks, get over to YouTube. SportsRap TV is the channel. Make sure you get over there, subscribe to the channel, like the videos that are your favorites, and then hit that bell so you'll be alerted when new video goes up. Also, I've been away for a little bit, but I look to return this Thursday. Drake Tavern, Old York Road, you know where it is. I'll be there on site, SportsRap on site at the Drake Tavern this Thursday. Folks, thank you all for tuning in. I definitely appreciate all support. Like I said, go back and check the video again, like I said, on the group page. Review this video. Leave me some comments because we're going to talk about this Deion thing, and I'm sure it's going to be talked about for the next several days. Folks, I appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you. It's been a great morning. Enjoy your Monday, December the 5th. It's a little chilly out, so dress warm, dress up the right way. Be great on purpose, and I will see you all next week right back here, Heat 100 Radio. Peace.